Former Hawkeye Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever will have a new head coach next season. The organization announced they have parted ways with Christie Sides after 2 years.
Breaking news. The Indiana Fever have parted ways with head coach Christie Sides. I repeat, the Indiana Fever have finally made a decision on Coach Sides. She's fired. Yeah, you heard that right. The same coach who just led them to their first playoff appearance since 2016 is now out of a job. Sounds crazy, doesn't it? But trust me, there's a method to this madness.
Sides went 33-47 in her 2 seasons and helped lead the Fever to their first playoff appearance since 2016. Sides coached 2 #1 picks and Rookies of the Year in Clark and Aaliyah Boston.
See, the Fever aren't just looking to be good anymore. They want to be great. They're looking to get a championship back to Indiana. They've got Caitlin Clark, the most electrifying player in the league. They've got Aaliyah Boston, a rising dominant star. They've got Kelsey Mitchell, the perfect backcourt complement to Clark. And they've got Lexi Hull, the most accurate three-point shooter in the league. Not to mention enough cap space to sign some quality free agents. Now they need a coach who can turn this talent into titles. But who's it gonna be? In this video, we'll dive deep into the Christie Sides decision. What could have led to it? Some other examples of all-time greats getting a new coach after their rookie season, and the latest on potential candidates that could be Caitlin Clark's new coach. Before we break it down, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Are you ready? Let's go.
Was in the second year of a 4-year deal with Indianapolis, who will now begin their coaching search immediately.
Remember when the Indiana Fever were the laughingstock of the WNBA? Well, those days are over, folks. For years, the Fever struggled to build a competitive team, wallowing in mediocrity and watching the playoffs from their couches. It was a far cry from their championship days with Tamika Catchings. But then came the 2024 season, and with it, the arrival of Caitlin Clark. The hype was real. Fans were buzzing. This was supposed to be the year everything changed. And then, the Fever stumbled out of the gates with a dismal 1-win, 8-loss record. Ouch. Suddenly, all that excitement turned to frustration. Fans were calling for Coach Christie Sides' head. It looked like the same old Fever.
The pressure got to her. The pressure 100% got to her, because remember at the start of the year being like, oh, Caitlin has all these bad habits and let's throw players under the bus and, you know, we need more paint touches, and not even the pressure got to her. She's had no idea early in the year how to coach Caitlin. And I have to give her credit, is that she actually did get better as the year went on.
Just when everyone was ready to write them off, the Fever caught fire. They went on an absolute tear, winning 19 of their next 31 games. It was like watching a completely different team. The ball was moving, shots were falling, and suddenly the Fever were fun to watch again. And let's talk about Caitlin Clark for a second. This girl wasn't just good, she was historically good. Clark was breaking 62 records left and right, showcasing an all-around game that had fans and analysts alike in awe. The turnaround was so dramatic that Christie Sides, the same coach fans wanted fired earlier in the season, was named WNBA Coach of the Month for August. Talk about a plot twist. It was the first time a Fever coach had ever received that honor in a long time.
It's always important to give credit where it's due, and I think we all realize where the credit needs to be given as far as the success of this WNBA season. Caitlin Clark came in and made such an impact.
All this momentum led to the sweetest reward of all, a playoff berth. The Fever clinched the number 6 seed, ending an 8-year postseason drought. Just like that, basketball was relevant again in Indiana. But here's where things get interesting. Despite all this success, there were still whispers, rumblings that maybe, just maybe, the team could be even better. Clark herself hinted at some frustrations with the coaching staff. In one telling moment, she admitted,
"Nobody gives me advice in game. I wish."
That's not exactly a glowing endorsement of your head coach's in-game management. And when the playoffs rolled around, the Fever were bounced in the first round by the Connecticut Sun. It was a harsh reminder that while they'd come far, there was still a long way to go. As we're about to see, making the playoffs wasn't enough to save Sides' job. The Fever had gotten a taste of success, and now they wanted the whole meal. You thought making the playoffs after an 8-year drought was enough? Think again. The Fever's front office had other plans, and they were about to drop a bombshell that would shake the entire WNBA.
When Kelly came, it was 50-50 for Christie Sides and Lynn Dunn. Kelly was going to come and clean house. Now, I'm here to tell you that is exactly what Kelly is doing. They finna, bro, this is crazy, dog.
The team had finally made it back to the playoffs. Caitlin Clark was setting the league on fire, and fans were buzzing about the future. It felt like the start of something special in Indiana. The offseason was supposed to be a time for celebration, for building on that success and taking the next step. But we knew change was coming. The Fever was cleaning house. They just recently appointed a new president in Kelly Krauskopf, who was the architect of the previous Fever championship with Tamika Catchings, and most recently a part of the Indiana Pacers front office. They then relieved GM Lynn Dunn of her duties, moving her to an advisory role. Afterwards, they hired league veteran insider Amber Cox to become general manager to maximize her deep connections with the league, teams, agents, and players. We knew the writing was on the wall. Then, the news hit. Christie Sides was out as head coach of the Indiana Fever. Now, before we dive into the why, let's take a moment to recognize what Sides accomplished. She took a team that had been the laughingstock of the league and turned them into a playoff contender. Sides did the best she could with the tools she had, and she deserves credit for that.
Christie Sides credit, for morale, for team bonding, for keeping everyone's head up, for making sure the team were all on the same page, for making sure that in the mental stuff, which is as important as anything in basketball. She was good with all the mental stuff. Obviously, they really had a tough time with all the social media stuff, especially early. And we saw what happened with the Chicago Sky with Teresa Weatherspoon, where she did a horrible job at that. We saw Christie Sides doing a good job of getting all the team being in a good position with social media stuff. So we got to give credit where credit's due for that.
In fact, her response to the firing was pure class. She took to Twitter to show a kind of grace you love to see, even in tough moments. So thank you, Coach Sides, for helping to right the ship and get the Fever back on course.
I think Christie Sides did as good a job as she possibly could have done with the team, because it was more important to get this team together, forgetting about the social media crap, to stop any sort of potential resentment towards Caitlin Clark from her inside her own team, because there was some resentment from outside it. For getting Caitlin Clark to kind of come out of her shell as a person during the season. I thought Christie Sides did a really good job, and I actually think for year one, that is more important than good coaching.
But in the cutthroat world of professional sports, sometimes good and mediocre isn't good enough. The Fever are clearly aiming higher, and they believe Sides' coaching ceiling just wasn't high enough to get them where they want to go. So, let's break down the reasons behind this shocking decision. First and foremost, defense was a major issue all season long. The Fever's defensive struggles were glaring, especially when it mattered most. Throughout the regular season, the Fever's defensive rating was among the lowest of all teams. They just couldn't seem to get stops when they needed them most, often losing close games due to late defensive lapses and bad play calls. In a league where defense wins championships, this was a red flag that couldn't be ignored.
But a lot of the things she did well were good assistant coach things. Things you want from a good assistant coach. Not your head coach. Was she good in game adjustments? No. Was she good at making subs? No. Was she good at making seeing what the other teams were doing and game planning for that? No.
Then there's the question of maximizing Caitlin Clark's otherworldly talents. Look, Clark had an incredible debut season, breaking records left and right, but some people within the organization felt that Sides wasn't doing enough to fully unleash Clark's potential. The Fever clearly believe they can find a coach who can take Clark's game to even greater heights. But perhaps the biggest factor in this decision is the return of Kelly Krauskopf as president of basketball operations. Folks, this is a game changer. Krauskopf isn't just any executive. She's the architect of the Fever's most successful era. From 2000 to 2018, she led this franchise to 13 playoff appearances, 3 WNBA finals, and 1 championship. She knows what it takes to build a champion, and she's not here to mess around.
This is about the Indiana Fever. Yes, we have a foundational player in Caitlin Clark and Leah Boston, and we're going to continue to add to that. But I want this team to be the leader in the country.
Krauskopf's return signals a seismic shift in the organization's philosophy. She's made it clear that the goal isn't just to be competitive, it's to bring another WNBA championship back to Indiana. In her own words, while decisions like these are never easy, it is also imperative that we remain bold and assertive in the pursuit of our goals, which includes maximizing our talent and bringing another WNBA championship back to Indiana. That's not just talk, folks. That's a declaration of intent. This move shows that Krauskopf believes the Fever can attract a more experienced coach, someone who can take this young, talented core and mold them into a true contender. And let's be real, the pieces are there. Caitlin Clark is a generational talent. Aaliyah Boston is a rising star in the front court. Kelsey Mitchell is a proven scorer who can take pressure off Clark. Lexi Hull has developed into one of the league's best three-point shooters. Add in the cap space to potentially add some key free agents, and you've got the makings of a potential dynasty.
Their new GM literally starts her job tomorrow. And that's what everyone said. And they were like, nothing is going to happen until the new GM comes in. And obviously her first thing is hiring a new coach. But again, I do want to give credit where credit's due to Christie Sides. Like, to say Christie Sides did no good is wrong.
But all that potential means nothing without the right person steering the ship. So while the decision to fire Christie Sides might seem harsh on the surface, it's a move that speaks to the Fever's lofty ambitions. They're not content with just being good. They want to be great. They want to be champions. And they believe that to get there, they need a coach who can match the immense talent on their roster. The pressure's on now, though. This next coaching hire will be crucial. Get it right, and we could be looking at the birth of the WNBA's next great dynasty. Get it wrong, and all this potential could go to waste. But one thing's for sure. With an aggressive management and a roster brimming with young stars, the Indiana Fever are going all in on their championship dreams. And they're not afraid to make the tough decisions to get there. If you've made it this far and are enjoying the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications. We know watching this video takes some of your time, and we appreciate you. Now back to the action.
I gotta give credit to the Indiana Fever for not saying mediocre is enough.
Talk about a high-stakes game of musical chairs. 6 WNBA teams are scrambling for new coaches, but only one has Caitlin Clark on their roster. Who's going to land the golden ticket to coach the Fever? They're on a mission to build a dynasty, and they're moving at warp speed. Just look at the changes they've made in the past year. New president of basketball operations, new general manager, and now they're on the hunt for a new head coach. It's like they're following a blueprint straight out of the sports history books. Remember when the Chicago Bulls brought in Phil Jackson to coach Michael Jordan? Or when the Los Angeles Sparks hired Brian Angler to lead Candace Parker? How about when the Phoenix Mercury brought in Sandy Brondello to coach Diana Taurasi? Or when the Seattle Storm hired Ann Donovan to guide Sue Bird and Lauren Jackson? Those moves changed everything for those franchises. Now, the Fever are hoping to write their own chapter in that storied tradition.
Really get Indiana back to a deeper playoff run, look for their second championship, and that is related to some of the names that we have out there. I think also you just see that, this is an organization that knows that they have a great player in Caitlin Clark, and they want to have someone that can future-proof and really see the vision of how the WNBA is going to maneuver moving forward. And so at this time, at least, it sounds like the Indiana Fever, they've made other changes as well, but they think that moving on from Christie Sides is probably the best bet.
With Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston, Kelsey Mitchell, and Lexi Hull on the roster, this Fever coaching gig is suddenly the hottest ticket in town. We're talking about a team with young generational talent. It's like being handed the keys to a sports car and told to go win the Indy 500. Any coach worth their salt would be salivating at the opportunity. But here's where it gets tricky. The Fever aren't the only team looking for a new coach. In fact, there are 5 other WNBA teams also on the hunt. That's right, nearly half the league is playing coaching roulette this offseason. The competition for top candidates is fierce, to say the least. The difference? The Fever have Caitlin Clark. So, who's the frontrunner to be the next head coach of the Indiana Fever? Well, one name is on everyone's lips: Stephanie White. And let me tell you, this would be a homecoming for the ages.
There was a lot of conversation regarding Stephanie White. Now, Stephanie White has played in the WNBA. She was an assistant on the Indiana Fever when they won the championship with the great Tamika Catchings in 2012. And she also was the head coach for the organization before moving to the NCAA and finally returning to the WNBA with the Connecticut Sun.
White isn't just any coach. She's Indiana basketball royalty. She played her college ball at Purdue, led the Fever as a player, and even coached them to the WNBA Finals in 2015. Talk about coming full circle. However, White is currently under contract with the Connecticut Sun, where she just won the 2023 Coach of the Year award. Yeah, you heard that right. The Fever are eyeing a former Coach of the Year to lead their young squad. White's coaching style could be exactly what the doctor ordered for the Fever. She's known for her emphasis on strong defense, which is music to the ears of Fever fans who watched their team struggle on that end of the floor last season. And let's not forget, she's already proven she can win in Indiana. In her 2 seasons as the Fever's head coach, she led them to the playoffs both years, including that finals appearance.
Yeah, it's exciting. Certainly I was born and raised in Indiana, and so have a lot of pride in Indiana basketball, and a lot of pride in the Fever organization, being a player and a coach there. And it's exciting what's happening with the organization and where they are. I mean, most organizations have their ups and downs, certainly. But I'm proud of the growth of the Indiana Fever. Excited, about the future of the Indiana Fever.
But don't go penciling in White's name just yet. There's another intriguing candidate who could shake things up, Lisa Bluder. If that name sounds familiar, it's because Bluder was Caitlin Clark's college coach at Iowa. Talk about a dynamic duo. Bluder's resume is nothing to sneeze at. She's won over 875 games in her coaching career and led Iowa to back-to-back NCAA championship game appearances. She's the all-time winningest coach in women's Big Ten history. The woman knows how to win. Plain and simple.
Caitlin's light shines. It shines on all of you. And I try to remind our team of that all the time. We're going to enjoy that light, and it helps all of us.
The thought of reuniting Clark with her college coach is enough to make Fever fans giddy. After all, nobody knows Clark's game better than Bluder. She helped transform Clark from a highly touted recruit into the most electrifying player in women's basketball. The chemistry is already there, which could make for a smooth transition as Clark enters her sophomore WNBA season. There's just one tiny wrinkle. Bluder recently retired from coaching. She's publicly stated that she's unlikely to return to the sidelines. But here's where it gets interesting. Fever fans have been vocal about wanting Bluder for the job, and we all know the influence Clark has. Could the opportunity to coach Clark again be enough to lure Bluder out of retirement? Stranger things have happened in the world of sports.
Truly, Caitlin has a different set of rules because she's a special player and she has different talents than most people have.
And then there's the wild card. Cheryl Miller. Yeah, that's Cheryl Miller, the basketball legend, the Hall of Famer, the woman who changed the game. Miller has coaching experience in the WNBA, but has not clearly expressed interest in returning to the league. Her connection to Indiana? Well, let's just say her name carries weight in basketball circles everywhere, including the Hoosier State. Bringing in Miller would be a bold move, no doubt about it. She's got the star power, the basketball IQ, and the winning pedigree. Plus, can you imagine the energy she'd bring to the sidelines? It would be electric, and she already has proven success with Clark, leading the All-Star team to crush the U.S. Olympic team during the 2024 All-Star Game.
I hugged her. I said, I'm so proud of you. I go, savor this. Use this as a formula. I said, but keep being you. I said, no matter what, keep being you.
Whoever ends up getting the job, one thing's crystal clear. They better be ready to win, and win big. The Fever aren't just looking for a coach, they're looking for a championship architect. They want someone who can take this young, talented roster and mold them into a dynasty. The pressure's on, no doubt about it. But that's the price of coaching a team with this much potential. As we wait for the Fever to make their decision, one thing's for sure, the basketball world is watching. This isn't just about finding a new coach, it's about setting the course for the future of the franchise. It's about maximizing the talents of Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston, and the rest of this young core. It's about bringing a championship back to Indiana. Who will be the one to lead Caitlin Clark and company to the promised land? Only time will tell. But one thing's for certain, the 2025 season can't get here soon enough.
Whoever takes this job is either going to be you're either going to be criticized, maybe wrongfully, but criticized more than your coach. But if you succeed, you are the GOAT coach. Like, if somebody wins 3 rings with Caitlin Clark, and let's just say Cheryl Reeve has won 4 with Maya Moore, whoever wins 3 rings with Caitlin Clark is going to be considered the best coach of all time.
All right, let's talk about the Indiana Fever's future, because it's looking brighter than a supernova. This team isn't just talented, they're loaded. Caitlin Clark, the rookie sensation who's already rewriting the record books. Aaliyah Boston, a force in the paint who's only scratching the surface of her potential. Kelsey Mitchell, the perfect backcourt partner for Clark. And don't forget Lexi Hull, who's turned into a sharpshooter from beyond the arc. The Fever have cap space. We're talking serious money to bring in some big-name free agents. This roster could go from great to absolutely stacked in no time flat. It all hinges on this coaching decision, though. The right coach could turn this team into a juggernaut, a dynasty that dominates the WNBA for years to come. But pick the wrong one? Well, let's just say the clock will be ticking from day one. The potential is there, folks. Now it's up to the Fever to make it happen. Do you agree with the decision? Let us know in the comments. Like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications so you never miss out. Click the video on the screen, and we will see you in the next one.